Welcome to Crappy to Happy podcast, a special series on our Sacred Stories podcast dedicated to sharing the incredible stories of grit, grace, and love in our new book, Crappy to Happy, Sacred Stories of Transformational Joy. I am your host, Rev Ariel Patricia, and together we will answer the question, do bad things happen to good people, or could the difficulties we face be gifts in disguise? Today we are speaking with Paour, whose story in Crappy to Happy is titled Wholehearted Living. Catherine is a blogger and storyteller with decades of experience as a perpetual patient. Her courage to share her misdiagnoses with hope, happiness, and humor is both interesting and inspiring. She advocates for trusting your intuition and for medical record accuracy. So it is my absolute pleasure to welcome Catherine Paour to Crappy to Happy.
Oh, thank you so much, Ariel Patricia, for that introduction. I'm really excited to be here and to be able to share my story with your listeners.
Catherine, my co-author and I, Kat, we just laughed and laughed and laughed reading your story when you first submitted it. And we were even like, could this even be possible? Could this even be real that this woman has lived through this? And then with such grace and joy, throughout it. And so I want to say thank you for sharing your story in Crappy to Happy.
Well, thank you. It's actually very cathartic and very inspiring for me to share my own story because it gives me a purpose for being here. And I love sharing my story with everybody. So thank you.
So your story is titled Wholehearted Living. Tell our audience your story, please.
Well, I have been struggling with health challenges my entire life, which started at birth when I was born, butt first. And I like to laugh when I share that because I think back in 1960, they probably had no clue that I was upside down and backwards and probably shocked the heck out of my doctor when my little bottom appeared. And that was the beginning of decades and decades of physical challenges and health challenges. And, my health has always been kind of who I am. And that's kind of where my story launched, is starting to tell the story about what I've been through, what challenges I've had, and where I'm at today, and how I get through them by living with happiness and humor.
So you were born butt first, but yes. There's a lot that's happened since then. I mean, even in high school, you talked about, you had scoliosis, you had a cast. Just kind of walk us through a little bit of some of your health challenges leading us up to the wholehearted living.
Okay. Well, again, I was born with that challenge. And then all through my years, I was struggling with asthma and scoliosis, and I was unable to run. I was unable to participate in team sports. I had just physical challenges every step of the way. Back in middle school when we did jumping jacks, I was crying because I couldn't do them. And I was always short of breath. I can remember always doing things with my friends and everybody else is just having a great time on the swings and I'm huffing and puffing and just really having a hard time breathing. So, up until my 20s and 30s, I was always involved in leadership activities. But all my other friends, they were out doing the physical things, the camping and the water skiing trips and, hiking. And I just really couldn't handle any physical activity. And nobody ever knew why. I mean, I had a lot of doctors and I had a lot of consultations. And, it was, I think at the age of 12, I was diagnosed with a heart murmur. And then when I was 23, I got a job at a medical center at a hospital, and I was in human resources. And I didn't pass my new hire physical. And they said, we can't clear you for employment until you are seen by a cardiologist. So that kind of started my career as a cardiology patient. And I've been, like I said, a perpetual patient for the last 35, 40 years with the cardiologist. And I delivered a baby in 1999. And I honestly did not think that I would survive that experience at all. It was absolutely brutal. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't push. I thought I was going to die. And then a couple years later, in my early 40s, I was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. And I was only 42 years old. I had a 3-year-old baby. And it was just really challenging. I was on numerous hospitalizations, and I was on home oxygen for a while, and it was really hard. And it's like, why does a 42-year-old woman have congestive heart failure? So as a couple years went by, I ended up having a lot of rhythm issues. Those of your listeners who understand about tachycardias, my heart rate would soar up to like 200 beats a minute, just sitting at my desk doing my work. And that was a very scary thing until I got used to it. It became such routine for me that this would happen. It would last for anywhere from 2 hours to 8 hours. And oftentimes I'd have to go to the ER, and they would convert my heart, which is either a chemical conversion of restarting your heart, or actually using the paddles to restart your heart. And it was like, I've had 3 surgeries on my heart to fix the rhythm. I've had 3 conversions. I've had every X-ray, CT scan, echocardiogram every 6 months. And nobody can figure out why I have my heart is just not where it should be for a young woman of almost, just 40. So it wasn't until I was 55 years old that I said, enough is enough. There has got to be something more. There has got to be a reason. There's got to be an answer to why this is going on with me. And not one doctor was able to give me an answer. So I reached out to a life coach at that time at 55. And I said, I have so many visions and dreams and things that I want to accomplish in my life, purpose and passion. I just don't have the energy or the stamina to do all these great things I want to do. And she says to me, Catherine, have you ever thought about getting a second opinion? And I said, well, I've had, dozens and dozens of opinions, and nobody really has an opinion. They don't have an answer. I've been called a hypochondriac. I've been called, it's all in my head, just all kinds of things. But I did break out of my comfort zone, and I sought out a new cardiologist after 35 years with the same one. And what happened in that appointment completely changed my life. And that's what my story is about. Leave you in a little suspense there.
It's really just, even the story you've already told about your health challenges leading up to the time you're 55 are incredible, and what really honestly struck both Kat and I, my co-author Kat and I, when we were reading your story, is again the grace and the humor. Even now you can tell the humor, the joy, the laughter in even the way you speak. So, one of the questions I ask, could our difficulties be gifts in disguise? Or, where is the gift within the pain? What would you say to that? Or how do you just show up in life with this kind of sunny disposition that you have?
Well, I know this might sound odd, but, I grew up in a family where, 3 kids, mom and dad. And I always like to give my mom some credit, because she was like Lucy, or if anybody of your listeners remember like Carol Channing. I mean, my mom was just hilarious and everybody loved her. And I think I just kind of got my disposition from her. And as I became a young adult, something clicked in me that's like, you know what? You can always choose to be happy regardless of what you're going through. And if you can be kind, then you can be happy. And it kind of goes hand in hand. Kindness and happiness are just such a grace in today's world. And I just look at the brighter side of life, and I look at the lighter side of life. When I was hospitalized, whenever I was going in for a procedure, it was lighter side of life all the way. I was never scared. I found the funny in everything. And there were some really funny incidences that, might be expanded in another story someday, but you just find the humor, and that's what has gotten me through everything. And to be able to tell my story today with happiness and humor, I think just provides inspiration for others who think that when they have a diagnosis or when they have issues with their health, that it's not the end of the world. I mean, there are people who can overcome certain challenges or can be find out that they have something very seriously wrong with them. And you can live with it and still have that hope and happiness. It's not always, being on the pity pot just wasn't for me. So I just think it's just a gift that I have within me to see the lighter side of life. And I think I get that from my mom.
I think it's a beautiful gift, and it's a beautiful gift that you share with others. And it's interesting because I do think that nature versus nurture, right? And I know that I know many people who almost feel like they have to almost give extra attention to the drama or the trauma or the pain, or they're not maybe taking it seriously enough. You know what I mean? Like they're not giving its due diligence to the pain or the worry or the trauma. And so it's just really wonderful to have someone like yourself who says, and it's actually a theme throughout Crappy to Happy, and it's something that actually my co-author writes on about laughing till it heals, that that you can still take something very seriously and be very respectful of the situation of what's happening, but you have control over approaching it with a joyful heart and with humor, and that's okay too.
Right. And I'm not saying that humor part is making fun of things or taking jabs at things. It's more about the experiences that you have. When you walk into an exam room after, being in the hospital for 9 hours and the machine is broken down. And it's just like, there's just things that are like Murphy's Law, like all the way through most of my experiences that have just been really funny. And those are the things that I remember, the funny things. I don't know, my heart just likes to hold on to the humor and find the lighter message in there. And the lighter message is, you're going to get through this. It's going to be okay. You've got a team of support. You're loved, and you're going to get through this. Regardless of the outcome in the end, have fun along the way. And I try to do that with everything that I do, is to just have fun. And quite ironically, I joined a laughter yoga thing, and I actually can't laugh very well because I don't have enough breath. It wasn't really good. It wasn't really good for my breathing. So while laughter is great, it's kind of exhausting for me because it takes too much of my air. I have a very restricted lung defect. I have only 52% of my lung function. So, laughing is sometimes challenging for me, but you know what? Everything comes through the smile and the eyes and just your graciousness and love. You can exude happiness and humor just in those ways, just being yourself. So
I think that's a really, really important point you're making, that finding humor in things or finding joy, even in the pain or the process that you're going in, doesn't diminish, you're not poking fun at it, but it is your choice of the experience you'll have.
Right.
And like you say, if you're going through it, you might as well enjoy it as much as you can, and I love that message very much. So so this has shaped your life. Obviously, it's been your life, really. I mean, yes. But now as an adult, and how has it shaped? Like, how do you spend your time? What is your work? What is your passion for the world?
Well, I worked 45 years full-time employment, and I was always one who was very giving and very into service. And when I went through some very traumatic experiences in the last 4 years, which you'll read about in my story, I ended up having to go on disability at the age of 56 and not able to return to work. But I thought, this is my time now to really shine and to show and exercise what I've had in my heart all along with my purpose and my passion. So I thrive in collaborating with women. I'm a leader of a Christian women's writers group of about 25 authors. And it's called Hope Writers. And I lead that group twice a week. I work a lot with organizations that have patient advocacy roles. And I just adopted a puppy, actually not a puppy, a little 10-pound doggy who takes me for walks every day. I still have both of my parents alive. My dad turns 90, my mom is 85. And my son just is in the Navy as a medic. And it's just shaped my life to be right where I am today, of just everything has worked out in God's plan. And it's just a beautiful place to be. In light of, and even in despite of what's going on in our country today, there's still happiness in my heart with knowing that we are all safe and well. So that's how it's kind of shaped me to where I am today.
I appreciate knowing that that Catherine Paour, you are out there sharing the joy and sharing the happiness and living your life that way. You don't just talk about it, but that becomes your life. Listeners, I will tell you that Catherine's story is pretty incredible. And she kind of left it off at, we have to read it to see, but there is quite a shocking news that Catherine receives in her story. And I encourage you to read it in Crappy to Happy for sure. Catherine, would you like to share your website with our audience or other ways they can get in touch with you?
Absolutely. And I hope this doesn't give away my whole story, but my website is called Wholehearted Courage. And that's whole spelled HOLE, Hearted Courage. I can also be found on LinkedIn with some of my professional work. And I also have a Facebook page called Wholehearted Courage. Again, that's whole, HOLE, Hearted Courage.
Thank you. And Catherine Paour's last name, if you were to look her up, is spelled Paour. Okay?
Correct.
So Catherine Paour, Paour. Catherine, thank you so much for being a guest on Crappy to Happy and an author in Crappy to Happy.
Thank you. It's just been such an exciting experience, and I'm very thrilled to become my first time published in your book. So thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. It's an honor. It's an honor for us. And listeners, I encourage you to pick up a copy of Crappy to Happy, Sacred Stories of Transformational Joy, which is available through Amazon, booksellers worldwide, or direct from Sacred Stories Publishing, where you will be able to read Catherine's just joyful, inspiring story, unbelievable story, actually, wholehearted living, and 30 other stories of the courageous and inspirational people that have showed up to share their stories with you. So thank you for listening to this special edition, Crappy to Happy, of the Sacred Stories podcast. I am your host, Rev Ariel Patricia, and until next time, as always, I encourage you to write your sacred story well.